I begin my project by measuring out how long I'll need my 4x1s to be for the top piece. Once I have my measurements, I'm ready to begin cutting. Each of my pieces ended up being about 18 inches long. Next, I need to cut a 2x1 for the front and back of the base. After cutting the piece to the correct length, I use my bandsaw to cut the 2x1 in half. After cutting the front and back of the base, I need to cut the sides. Then it's back to the bandsaw to cut the piece in half. Next, I begin cutting the pieces for the legs. I have a smaller dog, so I'm only cutting my legs to about 4 inches. After all my pieces have been cut, I'm ready to start gluing together the top piece. Once the glue has dried, I use my hand planer to give the edges a smooth, rounded look. Later, I'll sand the edges to give it a nice clean finish. Before I assemble the base, I put the pieces together to make sure everything fits. Once I'm sure everything fits, I give all the pieces a thorough sanding. After sanding, I'm ready to glue the base together. After the base is done, I check to see if everything fits. Next time, I'd probably make the base a little wider, but the bowls will still fit. I trace the inside of the base for reference points, and then I begin to outline the bowls. Since I need the lip of the bowl to hang over the area I'll be cutting, I measure the width of the lip. Using a compass, I trace the inner circle, which is where I'll be cutting my hole. I use my drill press to create starter holes for my jigsaw. I'm finally ready to start cutting out my holes. Thankfully, the bowls fit. Now I need to give the piece a thorough sanding before I apply the stain. I use the sanding band attachment on my Dremel to smooth out the inside of my cuts. And finally, a quick hand sanding to smooth everything out. Once my top piece has been sanded, I apply a pre-stained wood conditioner before I apply the wood stain. This will help ensure that I get a more even final stain. Next, it's time to paint the base. I'm using an eggshell white to complement the dark stain I'll be using for the top later. Now that the top has been conditioned, I'm ready for my stain. I chose to apply the stain with a clean cloth, but you can use a brush as well. Lastly, I apply a thin coat of water-based finish. After the finish has dried, I give the piece a very gentle sanding with 222 grit sandpaper, and then apply a final finish. After everything had dried, I simply glued the complete base to the top and I was done. Since mine is lower to the ground and more stable, I only needed wood glue to hold it together, but you can always use screws depending on the size of your holder.